We infilled right at dark. It was an Al-Qaeda training cell. They were ready. They heard the helos coming. They start passing out guns. Black Hawk comes in, short rope. As soon as it starts to lift off, it takes an RPG to the rotor blades. And I'm thinking, well, fuck, here we go again, you know?
Tom Satterly and the rest of the Delta operators learned some hard lessons during the Battle of Mogadishu. They learned about mortality in very personal ways. They also learned about urban combat in a way that even their extensive training hadn't covered before. But the Battle of Mogadishu was the first of an almost uncountable number of battles for Satterly in a career that stretched from Somalia through Bosnia and Iraq, all the way through to an anticlimactic finale in a parking garage in Akron, Ohio.
Parking garage was offset from the hotel through a tunnel that connected the buildings. So I'm kind of by myself in this parking garage. And I got my gun on my lap. You know, I got my Glock on my lap. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm done. And kind of like everything else in my life, just it came to me. That's how fast me wanting to be out of this world came to me.
What is true bravery? What makes a hero a hero? Tested by the worries of what's happening at home, thousands of miles away, and the reality of what you're facing here and now. When your life is in danger every second, and it's either kill or be killed. From Wondery and Incongruity Media, this is Anthony Russo, and this is war. There are job sites that make you wait for the right candidates to apply for your job. Not smart. But you know what is smart? Going to ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar to hire the right person. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend upon candidates finding you, it finds them for you. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply, so you get quality candidates fast. That's why ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the US. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. That's ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. The morning of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, found Satterly and his men boarding a flight from North Carolina to Boston. From there, the soldiers were headed to New Hampshire for rally car training. By sheer coincidence, the ticket agent in Raleigh had been a travel officer for the unit, so when the pilot came over the speakers that morning to ask if there were any military members on the plane, Satterly was pretty sure it was part of a prank, cooked up by an old friend just to embarrass him.
I'm looking out the window and I got my GPS going because back in the day nobody cared what you did on a plane really, and I got my GPS smashed against the window. I'm like, oh, we're above New York. And I look down and I see smoke billowing up into the air and I'm like, that's a lot of smog. Man, New York has a lot of smog. I just made a note of that. And we flew about 5 or 10 more minutes and the pilot comes on, he's like, is there any military people on the airplane? And so I'm thinking, all right, I'll play along. And I raise my hand and the stewardess comes back and she's like, hey, can you come up? The pilot wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what did Woody do? What did he tell this guy? I go up to the cockpit, the pilot opens the door, and he's flying the plane, he's looking over his shoulder, he's like, don't let anybody near the cockpit. Don't let anybody get out of their seats. You stay up here if you can do that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like thinking, okay, what's gonna happen now? He shuts the door and he gets on the PA system. Hey, this is the captain speaking. I'm thinking, here it comes. He goes, we've had 2 planes flying the World Trade Center. One, there's 3 or 4 more hijacked or something. There's military guys in the plane. Don't get out of your seats. Nobody approach the cockpit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here,
Think back and try and remember the confusion that followed over those last few days, even during those few hours. The pilot had been convinced that Satterly and his men were bound for the fight that was sure to follow, and it looked as if that might be the case for a while. Eventually, the Deltas were put back on a plane to Fort Bragg, where it was decided that they would be deployed as air marshals while that department got its feet back under it. The plan was scrapped for another and then finally scrapped altogether. After that, the team headed back to New Hampshire to finish their training, and then Satterly finally got word. He would be training up his squadron to go to Afghanistan.
That's when I went out to set up a squadron trip to prepare for the invasion of Afghanistan. As I got out there, I opened my suitcase and there was a card in it, and I opened the card up. I'm like, what's going on? I opened the card up again. It said, year number 2, forgot our anniversary. Don't send flowers. Don't send a card. Don't call. And I'm like, well, shit, I blew that one again. Set up the whole trip, came back to the rear, and then my sergeant major was like, hey, it's your time to go to S&T to be an instructor. And I was like, no, not now. I'm not going now. He's like, nope, it's your time. I've talked to your wife. You know, I know what's going on, and you guys are having troubles, and it's time for you to be an instructor. Anyway, you're past due. He goes, I know you want to get at it, but we're going to be at war for a long time. Don't worry about it. I was freaking out that I was going to miss this whole thing, you know? And he wasn't having anything to do with it. He sent me. The squadron went on and did their train up, and then went over to do Afghanistan stuff that I missed out on, and I ended up being an instructor for 2 years of that, and then boom, rolled right into Iraq, and that's where I did all my time there.
Being prepared to give up your life for your country isn't expressly about facing death. It's about giving over your will, living with decisions other people made that affect you and also the people who depend upon you. As a member of Delta, Tom Satterly was devoted to the mission and to the members of his detachment. It was a promise to service he made that colored all of the promises that came after it, for better or for worse. In the chaotic push toward the war in Afghanistan, though, 2 promises collided, and he was sidelined as he tried to work out his personal life. But special forces and marriage is a really tough mix.
It's funny, we talk about my first marriage. I'm on my 4th, or my last, we'll call it that. I got married young. I mean, I'll say that. And just jumped into it like everything else. I jumped into my marriage. I remember when she left, I came home from a trip to an empty house, no furniture, no nothing, everything gone. And I thought, well, shit, I really didn't care, you know? I mean, it was like, wow, what the fuck? She took all my shit. But other than that, I didn't really care. I thought, woof. She told me she had a boyfriend, so I thought she left me for another guy, which I told that story for many years until I think just within the last year, my sister clarified that no, she was just hurt. You were different. You guys weren't the same. So she left you, and she said that to protect herself, you know, make it look like, you know, she had something else. But she was in love with me, I guess, and didn't want to leave, but I was a train wreck. After Somalia, I was different. You know, I was way different, and I definitely wasn't with who I wanted to be with anyway. And I was probably a big asshole, a very, very big asshole, probably short. I mean, my memory of it's different than, say, my sister's, who was best friends with this woman who I'd married.
It's important to say here that Satterly didn't throw himself into his work because of his marital troubles. He did it because of an inner drive. Certainly, the rigorous and constant training with a side of aggression and alcohol in the right doses kept him moving forward and relegated some of the horrors of combat into the back of his mind. But he wasn't running from anything. Satterly was executing his duty and removing all of the obstacles from that. It just happened to come at a fairly high personal cost. As Satterly's 2-year stint as a training officer came to an end, though, he set his sights on getting back to combat, which meant touring Iraq and making plans to get back to grabbing up bad guys. And the lessons that he and the rest of the special forces had learned in Mogadishu would serve them well in the early days of the war in Iraq.
It helped me to look ahead. Instead of just showing up and shooting people, it's like I can look ahead and learn about them. I can look ahead and learn about the weather, you know, the rainy seasons, the heat, the temperatures and things like that. And, oh, by the way, the enemy disposition and how they normally act and react. So I started paying attention more to the intel side of it so you could learn more about it before you get there and help your men with it. I learned the devil is in the details, those things that you need all the time, night vision, water, you know, food, ability to stay awake, whether that's a pill or something. Resupplies, instead of just throwing out boxes of ammo and crates of water, you have your resupply package already packaged up and protected so they can drop it quicker. It totally changed the way the military did mount the military operations in an urban terrain. From that day forward, it completely changed how we did our tactics. We learned so much of what not to do there that we incorporated into the new mount training for the entire military.
For regular ground troops, there's a process called left seat, right seat, also known as relief in place. It's a way to acclimatize troops to the area they'll be working during their deployment. For the Special Forces, though, it's a whole different approach. These guys were tasked with catching Saddam Hussein and high-ranking members of his regime. This meant doing hits not unlike the ones they were doing in Mogadishu in the search for Muhammad Aidid and his loyalists. It means kicking down doors, IDing people, and, when applicable, carting them off and handing them over.
Towards the end of my instructor career, they're like, okay, we're going to send you to Iraq. You're going to fly around and see all the sites that your guys are going to be at. You're going to get familiarization with Iraq and all the places you're going to go, and you're going to come back, finish out your training, get your troop, and then your troop will pack up and go to Iraq. So I go do about a week, maybe longer in Iraq, go on a couple of hits with the squadron that's already over there. I fly back home, move back into the squadron, and take my troop. I think I did a couple of missions where I packed my troop up and we flew over as a squadron on an alert mission where they were going to do a Saddam hit or something and they wanted an extra backup, so we packed up, flew to Iraq, and augmented them for the hit. And sometimes those would never come to fruition, so they'd ask, hey, you want to go do a couple of hits with us? And we'd do a couple of hits and then fly back home. And then my troop packed up, set up at the MSS in the Green Zone in one of his palaces and just started launching missions following the same intel line that everybody before us had been following, kind of like, hey, we're getting close to this guy maybe, or that guy, we're trying to get Saddam here, deck of cards here. It was all the regime leaders up front.
Throughout the latter half of 2003, Special Forces hunted Saddam and his officers all over the country. There were decks of cards issued, each with a photo of the 52 top most wanted Iraqi officials. In reality, the blacklist extended well beyond 52, but the point the American military was making was clear. The clock was ticking on the former Iraqi leadership. After the May 1st mission accomplished speech from President Bush, tips came in faster and, just as in any other nationwide manhunt, all plausible tips were acted upon. Even before they were officially deployed, Satterly's squadron was flying in as backup. But as they took over the hunt, it became clearer and clearer that it was only a matter of time. Someone was bound to talk. You know what's not smart? Job sites that overwhelm you with tons of the wrong resumes. But do you know what is smart? ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't wait for candidates to find you. ZipRecruiter finds them for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply, so you get qualified candidates fast. No more sorting through the wrong resumes, no more waiting for the right candidates to apply. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the US. This rating comes from hiring sites on Truthpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. That's ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Special Forces were relentless in their hunt for Saddam Hussein and his upper echelon. As the ground troops patrolled and secured different sectors, the Deltas and Rangers spot attacked house after house, compound after compound, searching for fugitives and intel. More captures meant more intel, and more intel meant more captures. The Special Forces just started rolling up ousted leaders in their pursuit of the former president of Iraq turned fugitive.
We were in Baghdad at the MSS, Mission Support Site, and we were right on the Tigris River, so we would head south and turn, west towards Fallujah on the Rat Line and just kind of patrol along there and look for danger to get into. Would start tracking people along the Rat Line, tracking all the leaders and finding out who they were talking to, build up a large target packet, and then go smack every one of them at the same time, get more intel, build up a large target packet, smack more. We'd do one hit a night. Sometimes we'd do 5, sometimes up to 10 hits in a night, you know. Just one after the next, after the next, after the next, trying to roll them up before they got on the cell phones and told each other what was going on, and then went into hiding again. No, it was like a relentless evolution.
In 1993, when they were leaving for a brief assault that would stretch into what would become the Battle of Mogadishu, Satterly hadn't really heard the details. He knew he would figure it out as he went. 10 hours later, when he was dead on his feet, out of ammo and under siege, drinking from a leaky pipe in the wall and running out of time and hope, he learned a lesson that would carry him through his time in the Middle East again and again. Pay attention, plan, and plan some more. The hits in Iraq weren't different in kind than the hits they'd been making in Mogadishu, except there was a more practiced hand in these hits, and it was something they only got better at. Still, losing a Black Hawk helicopter during a routine hit twice in a career can be enervating at the least.
There was a mud hut house, you know, with some other houses kind of sprinkled around it. We infilled right at dark. It was an Al-Qaeda training cell. They were ready. They heard the helos coming. They start passing out guns. So little birds to the roof. Black Hawk comes in, short rope. As soon as it starts to lift off, it takes an RPG to the rotor blades. So about 1,000 meters away in an open field, you could still see it pretty much. It did a hard landing. And I'm thinking, well, fuck, here we go again, you know? There were people running everywhere. There were people running off the target, ran right up into us. Our helo landed in a field and took off, and the field was like silty muddy, so it was very slick for some reason. Outruns some bad guys towards us, and it's pitch black, and I'm watching him under nods. I look at my medic, I'm like, take that dude out, man. So he's not got a gun, so he comes running up, and my medic basically stiff arms him, throws him to the ground, and we handcuff him. Here comes another guy running, and he stops, and he's turning around, looking through the bushes at the house like he's going to do something. And so I want to shoot him, but if I shot and it went through him, or if I missed him, it was going to go in towards the Rangers, right? And so I couldn't do that. So I'm creeping up on him, and I get closer. I get about 5 feet from him, and I'm thinking I'm going to drop to a knee and shoot him up in the air at an angle. So if it goes through, it goes into the air. As soon as I start to drop to knee, he hears me, and he looks, and he probably saw a little bit of me in the dark, and he takes off running towards the target. I'm like, shit, I blew that one. And so I'm on the radio, squirter, running into target, and that guy made the fatal mistake of picking up a blanket, going to grab another gun, and he had, 20 lasers on him that he couldn't see, because it was IR lasers. And that dude, as soon as he picked up that gun, it was like, everybody got some of that guy. He dropped instantly.
Satterly sent Rangers to establish a perimeter around the Black Hawk. Here, chaotic is a relative term. Throughout the entire raid, there's sporadic, close-up fighting and gunfire. But now that he had more of a command role, Satterly had to take a big-picture view of the fight. On his first raids back in 1993, Satterly was apt to just take off running, trying to fight as many enemies as possible on his own. A decade's worth of experience and promotions, though, had changed it, added to it. Yes, he was responsible to do some of the ground fighting, but he was also responsible for the operational aspects of the hit, interrogating the captured, coordinating the Black Hawk rescue, and also trying to stay alive as the fight continued all around him in the desert night.
I make my way into the building, the commander's on the roof, and I'm inside talking to the bad guys, and I hear a radio call come over, hey, we got somebody running, and it breaks squelch and an explosion, I hear some gunshots and explosion. So it's like an external room to the house. The only entrance was from the carport area. And 2 assaulters had found it and went in to clear it. And there was a guy that ran in there with a suicide vest or a grenade. And so it injures one of my guys pretty badly. And the other guy's fine. I send the medic out there right away to find him. He comes back in. He's like, hey, so-and-so's pretty bad. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't care. I can't care right now. I got a lot of other people. So I've got Rangers pushing to this downed Black Hawk. I've got a team I had to push to another house we were taking fire from. I'm trying to get everyone pulled into the house so I can use the AC-130 overhead.
That was another massive difference. There were no AC-130s in Mogadishu, which critics said might have made a difference. The difficulty, though, is that the AC-130 only is useful if the ground troops are separate from the enemy. What Satterly understood, though, was that the quicker he accounted for his men and got them inside, the quicker he could get the suppressive fire he needed to make the downed Black Hawk more of a priority. Outside, dozens of Al-Qaeda fighters continued their counterattack.
I'm missing a guy, and I want to call in this helo, and I want to use AC-130, but I can't because I can't find one guy. I send the team back over to the house where they were from to look for this guy, and they found him in the field kind of mingling with the cows and talking to the cows, somebody said. They brought him back in. I'm like, oh, he's dehydrated if he's talking to a cow. So let's put him on the bird. I bring in the medevac bird. I throw the guy that was injured with the explosion, and I throw him on there, and we get him out of there. Then I start using AC-130 to suppress all this fire I'm taking from around the place. Once that's calm, over the radio, they're like, hey, we're going to send in a DART team. I go, what is that? Oh, what we're going to do is fly in some test pilots, some mechanics. They're going to assess the problem. They're going to fly back out, pick up the parts they need, fly back out, fix it, and then the test pilots will fly it out. The rest of you will fly it on the Chinook that brings in the parts. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? How long's that going to take? They're like, we don't know. I'm like, here we go. I'm here again all night with a downed helicopter. I don't have any extra water, so that's one thing I repeated. At least I got my nods, but I'm sitting here thirsty and hungry, going, I'm going to pull an all-nighter with a downed helicopter again.
With each successful hit, the special forces were getting closer and closer to their primary targets, ticking names off the blacklist. And as the hits added up, eventually someone would crack and give up someone else on the list. And when they did, each of the teams got one step closer to picking up the man whose face was on the ace of spades.
Got some intel on a guy who was coming to town from Tikrit, who our intel guy thought was one of the handlers of Saddam Hussein. Even the agency was like, nope, wrong family line. And our intel guy was like, I'm pretty sure it might be this. I'm going to stick with my gut. He had been right all along for a lot of things, so he stuck with his gut. So we went and did a hit, and the house was at the end of a short dead-end street. And as we turned the corner to head to the house at the end of the dead-end street, I saw a guy walking, black leather jacket, walking away from our target building. He turned into one of the houses. We go in and we do the hit in the house, and we're turning up nothing. It's just another dry hole, nobody we're looking for. We start taking fire from across the field in the opposite direction of the house, and I'm thinking, why would anybody in their right mind mess with us? And I remember thinking, are they trying to distract us for some reason? It just doesn't make sense for you to draw me away. So I sent a team down there. I said, Chili, go down 5 houses. Here's the house, blah, blah, blah. Go inside. This is what a guy's wearing. Bring that guy back. I want to talk to him. So we roll that guy up. I ask him some questions on target. He's not really giving up anything, so that piques my interest. He's lying about stupid stuff, but he's not giving anything. So I kind of, okay, he's not going to give it to me, but I'm gonna bring him back, hand him off to the professionals who do this for a living, and let them talk to him. So we go to bed that night. He flies off and goes to the facility where they ask questions. And 4 or 5 hours later, maybe, I'm deep in slumber, and somebody grabs me, wakes me up. Hey, we got a Saddam hit. And I go, always again, another Saddam hit. Here we go. Chasing Elvis, we used to call it.
Satterly and his team had been on Saddam hits dozens of times already, pretty much since the war started. Long before they made their first official deployment to Iraq, they were flying in on promising hits as backup. In other words, getting tips that they knew where Saddam was old hat by now. But there was something different in this report that really stood out and made Satterly take notice. The informant told them that the place where Saddam was had been hit before, but that wasn't news. What was news was that as each hit started, Saddam made his way into what the translation said was a bunker. This is what got Satterly excited enough to wake up his fellow team leaders and decide on a course of action. They would link up with another squadron from Tikrit and hit the 2 targets at once. One was a house near a fishing village. The other, a house rumored to belong to Saddam's personal cook.
Saddam loved fish, so he would fish, and then this guy would cook it for him, and he would eat it. So we get the 4th ID to surround the house, or surround the village, and do checkpoints. Open the doors, go in there, there's babies all over the floor. This guy's like 90 years, he looks 95 years old, and about to die. And his wife's, she's about to die. And of course, here we are, these big, bearded dudes. I was probably like 250 pounds at the time working out. So I was a pretty beefy dude. And so instead of a beard, I shaved clean, and my head was pretty much shaved clean. So I'm talking to this guy, through the interpreter, and he's like, yeah, he knows where Saddam is, and he starts to have like a heart attack, at least, or faking it. I'm like, I could give a shit about your heart attack. I told the medic, I go, I don't care if we have to tie him to the front of the vehicle. He's going to point out where we're going. He knows where Saddam's at. So I'm on the radio. I'm calling my boss. Hey, I know where Saddam's at. We're going to roll right now. He's like, nope, go home. I'm like, what? He's like, go home. Mission's over. Just load up. Bring him with you. Come on home. I'm like, bullshit. He knows where Saddam's at. Just come home. So we drive back to the Tikrit, walk into the palace, And my boss grabs me, he's like, come on, follow me. We walk over, he opens up the door, and there sitting in the chairs this dirty old man with leaves in his beard, salt and pepper beard, and it's like, oh, I go, this is him, huh? So this is over, I go, this dirty old man's the president of Iraq, and he spits on me, so we turn and walk out the door.
There was more than just a little satisfaction from the capture, and it did wonders for morale, and even more guys on the blacklist started falling after that. In another world, that should have been the beginning of the end of the war in Iraq. But what Satterly and the rest of the military quickly discovered was that with the fall of Saddam Hussein, things would only get worse.
Those were I hate to say easy, those were the easy ones. Those guys gave up a lot or, didn't really fight to the death. Once we rolled up all the regime leaders that were important and, it started becoming more terrorists, Al-Qaeda, and insurgents, it was like, oh, these guys are serious. They like to fight to the death because they don't care about dying, The regime leaders didn't want to die. They just wanted money.
Think of it this way. As the money dried up, the only thing really left to fight for was opportunity. Iraq had become an attractant for people with nothing to lose and people with something to prove, and as 2004 opened up, the war in Iraq would change in a fundamental way. The Special Forces would be fighting new enemies with a different take on what it means to really go to war. When I interview U.S. service members for This Is War, one of the books about the homecoming experience several have talked to me about is Tribe by Sebastian Junger. The book highlights the irony that, for many veterans as well as civilians, war feels better than peace. Adversity can turn out to be a blessing, and disasters are sometimes remembered more fondly than weddings or tropical vacations. Tribe is among the unmatched selection of books available at audible.com/thisiswar. Audible helps you listen to more books by letting you switch seamlessly between your devices, picking up exactly where you left off. Whether it's on your phone, through your car, from a tablet, or at home on an Amazon Echo, you can get through tons of books, hands-free and eyes-free, while doing almost anything. Plus, in addition to its dizzying selection of audiobooks, Audible content includes original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audible.com/thisiswar and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audible.com/thisiswar or text This Is War to 500-500 and get started today. Audible.com/thisiswar. By 2004, the shift in tactics was the difference between fighting the Iraqi army and navigating the tactics, goals, and grievances of a multitude of different enemy fighting forces with varying goals. With neither a national army nor a concerted effort, the fighting got a lot harder and a lot less predictable.
If you're in Sadr City in Baghdad, you got the Shia there after you, they're trying to kill each other. You got the Sunni Al-Qaeda terrorists who are trying to kill you and, oh, by the way, the Iraqis and the Shia maybe. So it's like almost a little regional war going on over there that you're fighting, and you never really know who it is. But the West was all the foreign fighters and Al-Qaeda coming across from Syria out into the desert, would get into Ramadi and Fallujah, and then boom, they had free access to Baghdad. So we were trying to push out and catch them out in the desert before they got into the urban environments where it was easier to hide.
Special Forces work on a different rotation from the regular Army. Regulars could expect a 13 to 15-month rotation, whereas the Special Forces tended to be 3 months on and 3 months off. For Satterly, it was weird because his experience on the ground was different from the experience he saw on television. As he tells it, IEDs were more of a PR problem than a practical one. Not that there weren't a lot of guys getting hurt, but in the popular consciousness, it was more about the injuries than the victories, especially as they became prevalent. Ironically, though, it would be the IEDs more than anything else that would take Satterly out of the action.
We were doing a hit on a house that had a vehicle parked in front of it. They were like, hey, there's people in the driveway and the gate's open, so there's a vehicle in the way. I go, push forward. And he said, there's a vehicle in the way. I go, just push it out of the way. And as he's pushing it out of the way, I'm stepping out the back of the vehicle because he's going slow enough, right? I'm going to step out the back of the vehicle. And right then, that car went up. It didn't kill anybody. It pushed the armored vehicle back in a sudden jolt. Launched me through the air like 20 feet, flipping head over, ass over tea kettle in the air. Landed in the gutter on my back and my head, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what was that?
Over the next few years, IED explosions would continue to take their toll on Satterly. In retrospect, destroying his disc in that first one should have been his last deployment, but he kept pressing. The weight of his helmet and the rest of his kit conspired with the IEDs to slowly tear his body apart. After he was pulled from the field to have emergency shoulder surgery, he was sure the end was near. And in 2011, 25 years after he joined the Army on a whim, Tom Satterly collected up his wooden triangle with thanks inscribed on it and returned to civilian life. It was way harder than he ever could have imagined. After all, a quarter-century's worth of combat took a toll on more than his body. Throughout the last decade of his career, it took a toll on his personal life as well.
I had a 2-year marriage with, I'll say it, a stripper. It was a fling in my life that most of my friends call a blip. They don't even count it. And then I got married to the woman who's the mother of my son, and we were married for a long time, but I think that lasted a long time because I was who I was when she met me, and she's a pretty hard ass herself. A lot of misery in that one as well. A lot of arguing and anger and fighting, and then then pack up and move to another room in the house and live there for 6 months, and then pack up, move to a hotel for 6 months, and then and then finally got an apartment for a year before packed up and moved to Savannah. It was like that slow death of getting away. It's because I had a son and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be away from him, even though I was never home, even though I wasn't a very good father because I was always gone, and I'd come home and spoil him. And then it's kind of to the point of man, I'm just going through the motions. It's probably worse for him, her, and me to be together,
Satterly was playing soldier in Savannah, literally, when the anger and aggression that had fueled him since 1993 finally took control. He was working for a touring entertainment company, leading a zombie fighting experience in different cities that included training by an actual Delta Force soldier. Satterly was sitting in a parking garage in Akron, Ohio, when he reached the end of his rope.
Guys got out of the car. We were supposed to meet in the lobby for a drink or a meeting or something. And everybody got out of the car, and I'm like, hey, I'll catch up with you guys later. And they all kind of went to the hotel. The parking garage was offset from the hotel through a tunnel that connected the buildings. So I'm kind of by myself in this parking garage. And I got my gun on my lap. I got my Glock on my lap. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm done. And kind of like everything else in my life, just it came to me. That's how fast me wanting to be out of this world came to me. I was like, this shit that I'm doing now for this shit company, doing this entertainment, killing zombie bullshit, come learn from a Delta operator how to kill zombies and then go kill zombies with a Delta operator. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I've become a show pony, and I hated it. The thought came to me like, do I put it in my mouth or do I put it at the side of my head? Because if I put it in my mouth, will the pressure blow me away before the bullet strikes where I want it to? I've seen people with shotguns do that and not kill themselves, and now they're maimed and a horrible rest of your life. Or do I put it at the side of my head? I want to do this right. I want to fuck it up. And then my phone vibrates and I get a text from one of the camera crew like, hey, you come into the lobby. You're supposed to meet us in the lobby. I'm like, oh shit. Immediately back to military. Don't be late mode. Don't be the guy that doesn't show up. Totally back out of it. Put my gun away. Went on down. Didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I have a picture I saw recently, and I realized that's that night. I was still in my military kit, and I got my arm around a friend of mine who was also completely and utterly fucked up. And you can tell I'm miserable. My face is fat. I'm miserable. I'm out of shape. And there's no happiness in my soul at all. You can tell by looking at a picture that I'm dead.
The crew person who had sent the text message was a woman named Jen Halsky. She eventually made a connection with Satterly and got him to talk about where he'd been, where he was, and where he was going.
She says, so tell me about Somalia. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't get a sentence out. I think I started to try to talk to her and tell her stories, and then start bawling, just sobbing like a friggin' child, and was covering my face like, what's wrong with me? Well, people are looking at me, they're thinking you're dumping me or something. I don't know what's going on. And she's like, just keep going, get the poison out. And she kept getting me to talk, and the more I talked, the better I started to feel. And then started realizing, she started putting me on the path of service, life of service back to your people, help people recover like you're recovering, take your experiences and take it to other people, and let's start a foundation. I'm like, yeah, that's great. How the fuck do we do that? She's like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Going through the process of healing often is just the first step. Like so many other things, no matter how well you learn them, it's when you have to teach them that you truly grasp the way they're done. Satterly found that was true for teaching close quarters battle or for training Delta operators, and it was also true for teaching other soldiers how to retake their lives, even after a really difficult separation from the service.
So when I'm helping people, I'm talking through their marriage crisis issues or their reintegration of family life with their sons, which I hardly know my son. He hardly knows me because I was always gone, and he's 19 now. But I can use my experiences to help people who are going through the same thing. And what we find out is all of these veterans have the same thing. It's hard to get to sleep, hard to stay asleep. I have anger outbursts for no reason. I yell at my wife. I ruin every holiday and birthday for no reason. I don't want to, but we always get in a fight, and it's always my fault, and I deny it. I have all these outbursts of anger. I yell at my kids, I yell at my wife or whatever, and it's no apparent reason. I'm like, man, I can take you guys to combat and throw you in the shittiest situations, and you'll make do. But all that anger that served us when we were in no longer serves us. It kept us alive in our service. It kept us alive for sure, and I thank it for that, and I put it aside. I sit it across the room, and I tell it, thank you for your service, anger. I no longer need you in my new life now. I need constant communication. I need love over anger right now, Instead of fear, it's love. And so sometimes you lead with fear, sometimes you lead with love. And I've chosen to lead with love now, because when you lead with fear, people follow you when you're there. You lead with love, they'll follow your plan even if you're not there,
The foundation the Satterlys founded, and Tom's autobiography, are called All Secure. It's the radio call for when the enemy has been suppressed, and suppression is kind of the key word here. Even when you can't win the war against anger, hopelessness, and fear, you can find ways to suppress them. You can claim victory after victory and ride those highs over whatever lows follow. And when you're down in it, you don't have to stay down. And when you can't get up, you can look around. There's certainly someone standing there who is willing to help you up. Next time on This Is War.
Now I'm thrown back 50 yards. My plate carrier had been blasted off me. My helmet was blasted off me, and my weapon had broken into three parts. My M4 was destroyed.
Are you a combat veteran, or do you know one with a story to tell? Reach out to us at stories@thisiswar.com with your dates and branch of service, as well as a brief description of the experience that you would like to share. If you like the show, you can help support us by visiting our sponsors or by leaving a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. This Is War was written by me, Anthony Russo, and produced by Incongruity Media. Executive producer Hernan Lopez for Wondery.